So 60 Minutes spotlighted a recent $100,000 donation that Publix, which, if you're in Florida, you know what that is. If not, it's a big supermarket chain, that they made to DeSantis' re-election bid, right? Just like every single company in the world, basically a major company does, right? That they support, and usually they donate to both parties a little bit in one and more to the one they're more favorable for. But that's the way it works, right? Lobbying. So the story suggested that there was a possible link between that donation and the state's partnership with Publix stores for vaccine distribution. Now, if that's true, that's a major story. That's a big deal. Talk about favoritism and Publix making profits off of this because they know DeSantis, all this, right? If it was true. Well, it turned out that the story was 100% false. And it's not just Republicans that are coming out on this, it's Democrats as well. As director of Florida Division of Emergency Management tweeted after this 60-minute hack job that he said, I said this before and I'll say it again. Publix was recommended by Florida Division of Emergency Management and Florida Department of Public Health. Nothing about DeSantis or his office partnering with Publix. Now, a reporter from 60 Minutes, and stay with me here because it's not about politics. It's going to roll in why this is important to stocks. So a reporter from 60 Minutes, during that hit piece that everybody saw, showed her asking a question during a press conference that DeSantis was holding, updating everyone in Florida about the vaccine rollout, how it's going, what can they do to make it better. And then after, she asked a question about this, about, what's going on with Publix and a donation, all this crap, they immediately went to DeSantis, where it looked like as if he completely cut off the reporter, saying, look, I explained this already. You have a fake story you're rolling out, blah, blah, blah. That's what it looked like on 60 Minutes. And then the reporter continued to try to ask him questions, basically cutting off DeSantis as he was speaking. So, in short, the piece made DeSantis look terrible, and also Publix. This is why it's a big deal. Publix is a very, very big company. And 60 Minutes was accusing them of having special treatment since they donated to DeSantis' campaign. So now the full press conference, the full version of it, because it was a press conference, is being published everywhere. And what really happened was the reporter asked a question about Publix and special treatment, and DeSantis took her question, and he spoke, let's say for a few minutes, laying out how the rollout in Florida takes place, why the story is complete BS. He actually answered in a very nice way. And of course, the reporter cut DeSantis off and accused him again of giving Publix special treatment. That's when DeSantis said, enough. This is a fake story. This is BS. And went on to the next question from another reporter. Now, why is this such a big deal? How does it relate to your portfolio? 60 Minutes used to be the premier program. That's where everyone turned to, right? Breaking stories first. If you want to get a story broke, that's where you went, 60 Minutes. The whole world tuned into them for the real story, the honest story. Now, we know that media, almost every media channel, has an agenda. And basically, to promote hate, make people angry, and support their own agendas or political parties. But 60 Minutes, they didn't just get the story wrong, got burned by a sauce. The story didn't even exist. They completely made it up to attack DeSantis since he's basically untouchable right now. Florida's a swing state. What this guy did for Florida is incredible. Republicans and Democrats who are business owners, these are people that are thanking him up and down because compared to New York, California, some of you, so many subscribers from New York and California that we have, I grew up in New York. I still have friends and family there. Tell me how crazy. Even when I talk to them, they're still scared to go outside. Oh, get the vaccine, but we're still wearing masks. It's crazy. They're being conditioned a certain way. But this guy saved Florida's economy, and he did it safely. Looking at the stats, where COVID cases crash here along with every other state over the past 4 or 5 months, similar trends, yet we remained open. And yes, you look at, some kids going a little crazy on beaches or whatever, and yes, that was taken care of. But the mask mandate, I don't think has been lifted here. You still have to wear masks in most of the major places like Walmart or Publix or whatever. They make you wear a mask and stay 6 feet apart still. It's not like Texas or anything. So it's not like a reckless thing that he did. He was just looking at the stats and base it accordingly where, what's the best outcome that we could have for businesses and keeping them open while, safely protecting elders. And he did a fantastic job with that. And we saw pictures of spring breakers. These are people that don't live in Florida who are getting out, who are locked in their homes, almost like handcuffs on, saying you can't do anything, don't go anywhere at all, even though you're under 18 and this disease is, when it comes to COVID. I mean, you have a better chance of dying from the flu now, what the statistics are showing, than COVID if you're under 18 years old. Now, the bigger point here is the people, you, and everyone. And we're being fed a complete line of bullshit. And it's not anyone's fault. I mean, it's not your fault. I shouldn't say it's not anyone's fault, but it's not your fault because we only know what we read and what we watch, right? And how else will we know what's going on in another state or country? We're not actually there. We're reading stories all the time. So when you're publishing things like this that have a political, it's very, 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 very dangerous. And to be clear, this isn't CNN or Fox News. I mean, they have their audience. They have their demographic that you know what those are. You know exactly what you're going to get when you watch these channels. That's fine. That's what they do. And they're open about it. So conservatives, liberals, those are those channels. I'm not talking about those channels. You know what you're going to get when you watch them. This is supposed to be, we look at 60 Minutes, an unbiased news outlet that people can trust, that do not tell lies, and especially does not have a political agenda. But this was a complete disgrace. I love the fact that the story's not going away. I love that both sides, Democrats and Republicans in Florida, came out against 60 Minutes. It came together. Said, hey, you guys had no proof this story existed. More important, you did a piss poor job finding sources to support their lie. They didn't even find good sources. None of it exists. And what they showed everyone on 60 Minutes compared to what really happened, that's a scary thought. Now, the next thing that happened this week, and again, I'm going to explain why both of these stories are extremely important to anyone who owns stocks, a 401k, owns assets. So Georgia passed a law where you must show your ID to vote. I don't get it. For some reason, this offended so many people. This is such a bad thing, right? Even though we have to show our license to get on a plane, to get a job just about at any company, to buy a car, to purchase a home, open a broker, we have to show a license, right? It makes sense. And showing ID reduces the risk of voter fraud dramatically, which every American should be in favor of, right? Because that's our right to vote. We want to make sure those votes are counted, and they're exactly right. And no matter what side won, the other side was going to claim voter fraud, no matter what side. And if you think that's crazy, look at when Hillary Clinton lost. They all claimed it was fraud. Just go back to the tape. Nobody really plays that in the media again. The media has an agenda, but it's the same thing. They were like, this is BS. This didn't happen. It's voter fraud. Because that's the way half the nation is. So how do we remove that? Well, you show IDs is a pretty good idea, right? You could have reduced that risk. Stuff, mail-in voting and stuff like that and certain things. But is that like a game changer? Is that where everyone wants to, put their foot in the ground and fight that's it? Like, that's the fight? So shortly after this passed, Major League Baseball came out and said, we fundamentally support voting rights for all Americans, but oppose restrictions to the ballot box. Like, this is going to restrict people. Everyone has a license. They have ID. Why is that restricting? I don't get it. So therefore, Major League Baseball said, we're moving the All Star Game. We're moving out of Atlanta, Georgia to punish them. And you know where they're going? To Colorado. Yeah, Major League Baseball having pressure from a small minority, right? These are the people who cancel culture people, and also its players. And, they decided to move the game out of Georgia. Now, there's a huge uproar by Georgia Democrats saying that, maybe this wasn't a good idea because this is going to crush small businesses in the Atlanta metro area, which is over 50% African American. So you talk about the ultimate backfire to try to make a statement. There it is. Even better, they moved the game to Colorado, which has the same laws in place for voters. You have to show voter ID. You have to show ID to vote. Now, here's where everything comes together. Because we have corporations now. Holy cow. And we knew corporations, you should know, they don't really give a shit about voters. They don't care about you. They care about profits, right? I mean, Coke's biggest market is in China, who they praise publicly how well they handle the coronavirus. I mean, just a newsflash, China killed 550,000 Americans because they did not close off their international borders when they knew how dangerous the virus was. They hid it. They didn't let anyone in the country at all, not even the CDC. And the CDC also came out and said, hey, China did a great job. When they weren't even allowed to go into China. Weren't even allowed. This spread, and we're just talking about the U.S., 2 million, 2.5 million, how many people died? But Coke praised them. You guys did a great job with the coronavirus. Why? Because it's one of the biggest markets. It makes sense. Now, why am I bringing up Coke? She had Coke, Delta, UPS, Home Depot, lots of other companies come out against Georgia and this law. And again, maybe it's me and I don't get it. There's other much bigger and better fights to fight. This just kind of makes sense from both sides. Anything that could reduce the risk of voter fraud makes sense on both sides, right? That reduces it, right? Shouldn't you have to show your license to vote? I mean, if you don't want that, think about it for a minute. What are you saying? I mean, you want people to be able to vote without even knowing who they are? Or if I don't get it. I mean, how could you actually be against that? That's insane. Then you have Delta. And again, that irony is even greater because you need to show an ID to board a plane. But they come out, it's terrible. ID voting, suppressing voters. Again, not some crazy BS law here. Something that's going to drastically reduce the risk of voter fraud if every state would do this. Now, looking at the bigger picture here, I mean, this cancer culture garbage is becoming a joke. I could tell you people are absolutely sick of it. They can't take it anymore on both sides. Look at Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, sports around the world. And this is what we turn to. I played sports my entire life. I'm a massive sports fan, as you guys know, right? Talk about the NCAA basketball tournament, the NFL, everything. Just a huge fan of sports. And you turn to sports to get away. I used to play basketball because it made me think of nothing. I was in the zone and that was it. I was able to forget everything. And it was awesome. That's what people do. They turn to you can't have a better storyline because it's, like everything on TV is predictable. Even reality shows, predictable. Most of them are scripted. Games like this and the NCAA tournament, they're not scripted. It's amazing. It's excitement. It's a place you take your kids to. And now it's become a political platform that's really destroying these sports. I mean, you want proof? Look at the numbers of every major sport, how they're down. They're down incredibly across the board. I have to tell you, I am definitely done listening to professional athletes with $200 to $300 million contracts talk about how America is such an unfair country. I mean, are you sick of that? I'm kind of sick of that. If you really think it's unfair, donate the $200, $300 million to all of your charities. Don't just donate the 1-2% that your accountant says to do for tax purposes. Donate it all. Or better yet, move to another country. Try to get that opportunity that you have, the money that you make. Try to get that opportunity because you worked hard to get that. It's amazing that you got that, but to say America is unfair, these are the people that are speaking out, saying America is unfair? Are you kidding me? That's insane. I said this earlier. This isn't a Republican Democratic thing. Although I am going to get negative responses from Democrats. That's fine. But it's not a Republican Democrat thing when it comes to cancel culture. I mean, I have plenty of friends who are both, and most do not support this cancel culture BS. They're hardworking Americans. They love the country. We have different views on how to make America better. And in the end, we all want the best for our children. Provide a safe environment for them. That's what we all want, right? All of our goals. But we just have different ways that we think we should get there. And that's fine. That's what debates are about. But cancel culture? Cancel things? I mean, we learn from our mistakes in history. We want to cancel all that stuff? That's why we're the nation we are today, where almost anybody can make it. It's why everyone in every other country is dying to get into the U.S. Yet we have these people complaining? I mean, I travel around the world. You know what? You try traveling around the world, you're going to realize how special and how lucky you are to live in America. But moving the All Star Game because of politics? And having 60 Minutes to a hack job story with which you get 100% politically motivated, telling us how white people are privileged and should apologize for being privileged. I mean, what? I mean, Dad should apologize for working 3 jobs, barely seeing his kids grow up for a good 7 to 10 years to make a better life for his children. Should I apologize for working my ass off to get to where I am, commuting 2.5 hours every day to go to Wall Street where I wasn't making a lot of money at the time? Then starting my own company, hiring great people, providing a service to help everyone out there make a better living for their families through investing. I have to apologize for this? Really? I have to apologize for that? But the main point here is corporations. The fact that they're making public statements about politics is really, really scary. We all know you could bribe politicians, again, lobbying, both sides, and that's acceptable. But companies usually do that for their own good. Getting special incentives, which will help them increase profits for their shareholders. That's the game. Everybody knows it. But to do something like this and speak out, politics, what a state is doing is insane. It's totally different. It's a big deal because now you're seeing people boycotting these companies. And you say, well, it might not be a big deal. Coca-Cola and Delta, it's not going to. Let me tell you something. We have 75 million people vote for Trump and 80 million plus vote for Biden. I mean, the country is a dead split. And to piss off half of these people with a BS political agenda that really has nothing to do with your product. Not to mention, I mean, look at the lawsuits that Coca-Cola has for discrimination. And again, having their rollout in China and the NBA, I mean, that's where their brand is. That's where the growth is in China. I mean, how come nobody's calling out China? Again, I'm not talking about 99% of the population. I love China. It's a place that I might even live one day. That's how much I loved it when I visited. And I visited a lot of different areas. But we're talking about their government, who's communist, suppressing. I mean, that is crazy. Like, they could have stopped this. They could have stopped this. And it's spread around the world. I mean, how many people you look at 550,000 people die. You know how many people are depressed? I mean, kids in school, and you took a year away from learning. I mean, this is stuff they won't get back. It's incredible. And they're not being held accountable. They'll never be held accountable. No way. But it's funny how all these companies are okay with that. But really, a law in Georgia that says show your ID, that's the stand you're taking? I mean, you talk about that many people and suppressing them, it could result in something pretty bad. And you remember, these companies right now, you hear it's S&P 500 is trading at a new high, NASDAQ, Russell, everything's at a new high, markets go higher, higher, higher. These companies are trading at super high valuations, and they're priced for perfection. So any setback in earnings could push these names down considerably in the quarters ahead, and that's a big risk because some of these names you have in your 401k, which you probably didn't even know because they're in an ETF, or maybe you own individually. And again, I know Coke, Delta, they're huge companies. But if just 5 to 10% of people say, you know what, I'm not buying their products because of this, which is happening. You're seeing news stories out there. And you're seeing both sides saying to boycott companies. Both sides are saying it now. Both sides boycott, which means half of their business could be lost for some of these names and some of these companies. But if you just get 5, 10% of people say, I'm done, and these stocks are going to fall considerably. So be mindful of the stocks you have in your portfolio. Which ones have a political agenda? Because not all companies have spoken out against, Georgia and the new law and stuff like that. And as for Major League Sports, I mean, I can be honest here, and sorry to use this language, but the commissions of these leagues need to grow some balls. They really do. They need to keep these plays in check. Of course, everyone has a right to express their view on social media, public platforms. That's your right as an American. Not on those platforms. NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL, those are not public platforms. Those are businesses. They're built for profits, and profits are getting hurt now because of these agendas. And they're going to continue to decline if you continue to mix politics with sports. It's not what people want. I go even further. No diehard sports fan. Not one of them wants this. They don't hear politics when they're watching sports. So be careful of the stocks in your portfolio. It's a big deal. A lot of these companies aren't reflecting a minimum 15% tax. A lot of large companies. I'll cover that later on in podcasts. Maybe a couple of videos on Curzio Research YouTube page of companies that's going to impact a lot of large companies. There's like 50 companies that industry leaders that could hurt. Also, you're going to see the tax rate be raised to 28%, corporate tax rate. We saw that was a boom to profits, regardless if you agree with it or not. But what you need to know as an investor, keep politics aside, is that's going to hurt profits. That's going to result in less R&D. That's going to result in less marketing, fewer ad spends, which results in lower revenue. Again, we are priced for perfection. And if you throw these things in there, which those taxes are coming, nobody's really talking about them. They're going to come pretty quick. And you throw in 5, 10% of people saying, I'm not going to fly Delta. I mean, you could fly. Do you need to fly Delta? I mean, Delta's hub is in Atlanta, which is right by me, so I use them the most. I'm not boycotting anybody, but some people are. But I could fly any airline I want to go anywhere I want. I don't need Delta. You don't need Coca-Cola. I mean, you look at these competitors. They have great competitors that are big. UPS, we have FedEx, Coke, Pepsi, Delta, United Airlines, tons of different airlines. I mean, there's other places you can go. It's not like the only show in town like Facebook is when it comes to advertising. And that ad spend, the return on ad spend is never greater than any other place ever, maybe on Google. There's other options. Just be careful if you own these companies in portfolio, because if they miss earnings estimates at these crazy valuations, these things will fall 10, 15% in a day and probably trend lower because everyone's going to get out of them, breaking through the 200-day moving average, and you're going to see these things fall even further. So just be careful, guys, because a lot of stuff that's going on in the world you need to pay attention to because it's going to impact your portfolio.